What's up, guys? Travis here with Mineral Mentor. Here today to talk about an interview that we just did. I'm here with one other person, our other Mineral Mentor, and he is...
What's up, guys? My name is Devin, and I am one of the Mineral Mentors. We just finished an exclusive interview with the one and only Dr. Joel Wallach. We'll be announcing and promoting and sharing this information with all of you guys. Went through a really good hour-long session with him, and stay tuned for we're going to have more content with Wallach in the future. Very exciting stuff.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Devin and Travis, I really appreciate you setting up this communication with your longevity family and communicate this information. Appreciate the opportunity. And I just want to remind everybody, whether you're a customer or you're an associate, aka a distributor, you're going to get the wholesale prices, and also you'll get the free shipping if you get on an auto ship. I will pay the shipping if you get on an auto ship, so it doesn't get any better than that. There's no reason you have to pay shipping. And if you do this as a business, you get tax breaks. If you run out of your home, you don't need a store, you run out of your home, you get thousands of dollars worth of tax breaks every month because you have a mortgage. You're taking so much space in the house, so you get to deduct that portion of your mortgage, of the square footage, your telephone bill, your car, your heating and electricity and utilities and air conditioning. And then, of course, water, all that kind of stuff is tax deductible. If you have somebody come in once a month to clean, or once a week to clean or something, that's a portion of that fee. Okay, appropriate portion is a tax deductible. So it's amazing. People say, I never realized it. Man, I've got $1,500 worth of tax deductions here. I got $2,200 worth of tax deductions just running this business out of my own home. So that's a value right there, plus all the nutritional values. Of course, with longevity, we have over 5,000 products. We deal with over 600 major diseases. And when you take all the sort of peripheral manifestations and everything, some 900 different side effects and so forth. Now, people say, well, where do I start? Well, I would say that you should start with, of course, the legendary Dead Doctors Don't Lie, the book and the CD. We've sold over 500 million, close to 600 million copies. It's in 3 languages, the CD's in 3 languages. We're talking about French and Portuguese and Japanese and Korean and Chinese, Mandarin and so forth, and English, of course. And then in addition to the book and the CDs, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, you want epigenetics, the death of the genetic theory of disease transmission. I'm considered one of the 2 fathers of that science. And we have a new CD set that goes along with it, 2 CDs, epigenetics, okay, goes along with this book. And the 2 CD set was an interview we did with Bruce Lipton and myself. He and I are considered to be the 2 fathers of the science, okay, of epigenetics. And the first hour is an interview where he and I are interviewed, okay, by Michael Zwerling from KFCO. And Bruce Lipton and I came to the same conclusion as to what epigenetics is as a science, but we started out 180 degrees different, and we came together. And of course, we've been doing this for 30 years. We've never been interviewed before together, but it's except for this last time, which is a couple of months ago. And the CD set is available now. The second hour is where people called in and asked questions, and he gave his version of how to deal with it, and I gave my version how to deal with it. So it's very useful stuff. And then I've just finished up another CD set, 2 CDs. It was actually done in Canada some years ago, but they had forgotten they had done it. They got busy and forgot about it until just recently. And so it's a 2 CD set. The set is edited, it's beautiful, the quality is fantastic. There's no Canadian accent because it's all me speaking. The title of this 2 CD set is the Wallach Corpus, the Wallach Corpus. Now it's named after the Hippocratic Corpus, which was made in the 4th and 5th century BC. Okay, it was made by Hippocrates, because before Hippocrates, medicine was not an organized system. There weren't medical schools or anything like that. And grandma was a healer, and some widow lady was a healer, and all that kind of stuff, or maybe some guy who was blind was a healer. And but you know, everybody had their own herbs and this and the other, and it was kind of a mismatch and hiccups, and you know, it was a monster of things going on for thousands of years. And Hippocrates came along and said, we got to do a better job than this. So he came up with what he called the corpus. And there were 60 articles in this book that he did 400 to 500 years ago BC. It's like crazy. Okay, 60 different articles, 59 different diseases. The 60th one was the Hippocratic Oath, because he didn't want people giving away his secrets, right? So the Hippocratic Oath was invented to keep the patients from telling other people. He said, you have to promise me if I cure you, you can't tell people how you cured yourself. You have to send them to me. And so he made them promise and all this kind of stuff. That's what the Hippocratic Oath was. Okay, so now, why did I call this new information the Wallach Corpus? Well, I named it after the Hippocratic Corpus because everything in my 15 best-selling books and my 110 best-selling CDs and 50-something best-selling DVDs is new. I'll give you a couple of examples and we can go to questions. One example is Down syndrome. Everybody knows it's a trisomy 21. Okay, the 21st pair of chromosomes, there's actually 3. And causes, you can look at a baby from 100 feet away and know they're a Down syndrome baby because they have that Down syndrome look, and they have a certain amount of things that go wrong with them. And it's a life that is restricted. Okay, they're not able to do much because their ability to learn stuff is limited, and you know, their IQ is down, and they're not very healthy, and so forth. So I came along, and we're talking about, and all this is in this the book Epigenetics, but it's also in the CD Epigenetics. It's also in the CD set, the Wallach Corpus, in great detail. Because normally when I would talk about this in a lecture, I'd give 1 or 2 sentences to it and have to keep moving on. But in the 2 CD set, the Wallach Corpus, I spend 8-10 minutes on it in a lot of detail. Okay, so, well, here we go. Let's look at Evel Knievel. You fellows have heard of Evel Knievel. You know, that daredevil with the motorcycles, does backflips and all these crazy things with the motorcycle and everything. Well, his niece-in-law, Lauren, called me, in 1997. She called me in 1997. She said, Dr. Wallach, I'm one of your distributors, and I'm pregnant. I'm 2.5 months along in pregnancy, and I've been diagnosed, my embryo's been diagnosed with an ultrasound and a triple screen, 2 very dependable diagnostic tools for Down syndrome. And everybody wants me to get an abortion. I'm 2.5 months pregnant. You know, I just am pulling my hair because I'm against abortion. And is there any way you can help me with this fetus? And I said, well, I've never done this before. I have ideas and theories, but I've never done it before. She said, well, let's do it because I'm not going to get an abortion. If the baby's born Down syndrome, I'll raise the baby, but let's do what we can do. So I overnighted her what we call today the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. You know, the biggest hammer we have in the cookbook, right? In the toolbox. The Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, and 90 essential nutrients plus other things and anti-inflammatories and blah, 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 blah. The baby's born perfectly normal. No trisomy 21, no Down syndrome. Isn't that beautiful? We'll give all the credit to God. Now, I just talked to her a couple of weeks ago. Now, she named her son Noah, who's perfectly normal, no birth defects of any kind, certainly not any Down syndrome. And we have all the records of the ultrasound and the triple scan, which proves that he was a Down syndrome embryo. Okay. So, at any rate, here's this beautiful baby. Now he's in the university, okay, getting an engineering degree, brains, and also, in addition to getting a degree, he is with the Army National Guard through the university. Is that a beautiful story? That's a beautiful story. Now, the next story is also a Down syndrome story. It's Ben and Wendy. They were born in Texas, about 300 miles apart. Their parents didn't know each other. But as they got to be kindergarten age kids, their parents kind of moved together, not together, but they moved closer together. They're like 50 miles apart now because they're going to go to the same school. But these are two Down syndrome kids with all the manifestations of Down syndrome kids that are at kindergarten age. Special education necessary and all that kind of stuff. Very difficult in learning and remembering and reading and following rules and so forth. Typical Down syndrome kids. And I have to tell you that just this year, Ben retired. He just retired. He didn't graduate. He retired. Okay. Ben retired from being the head of the Department of Computers and Records at the School of Engineering in Texas A&M. And his wife, Wendy, will retire next year. She's the head of the marketing department, international marketing department for Chick-fil-A. Two very, very important jobs requiring an enormous amount of mental capacity. Okay. And yet they were able to do these jobs and do them all through a professional career and retire with honors and retire with all their benefits and everything like that. Well, that's because they were taking the 90 essential nutrients and every part of their body healed to its maximum and was able to function perfectly. And of course, these are just two of the stories that are on the Wallach, on the Wallach Corpus. There's 23 stories on there. Some of them are of huge magnitudes. Okay, I'll tell you one more. I got to tell you one more.
Please do.
Okay, thanks. Well, this story has to do when I was just coming back from Africa. Okay, Marlon Perkins had taken my first scientific paper, which I wrote when I was 1961. I was 21 years old, and I was filling in, working my way through college because I was poor, farm boy. And so I was working in the pathology department. I had gotten my degree in agriculture, and I was working towards a veterinary degree. And I was working for the pathology department. Everybody else was on vacation. And they brought me 50 dead lambs, and 500 had died in this one farm this night before. 500 died, and they were perfectly healthy. They were all going to go to market in 2 weeks. They were going to shear all the wool off, send to market. Nothing wrong with any of them. They all died one night. I showed that a neighbor had been fertilizing his farm with nitrates and all gotten into their drinking water. But why did they all die in one night? Okay, well, when I did the autopsies, they had goiter. All the lambs had goiter. And that night that they all died, the temperature had dropped to 19. It had been running 65, 65, 65, 65 all the time in central Missouri in December. Okay, sometimes we get 80 degrees if the wind's blowing up from the Gulf. But when the temperature dropped to 19 that night, they all died of hypothermia. So I figured that all out and got it published in 2 veterinary journals and everything. I'm 21 years old. It's my first scientific publication. I'm so excited. When all the professors came back from their Christmas vacation, I said, here's all this thing. Can I be one of the authors of this thing? He said, well, no, this is yours. You do it. So they're very honest and let me be the sole author on this thing. And Perkins got a $25 million grant based on that study that I did on that one event. So to make a long story short, I'm coming back from Africa because he had sent me to Africa to work on the white rhino conservation project. I caught 200 white rhino, brought them back here. Now there's 25,000 in the world because I'm sending them all over the world. They're having babies and we're saving them in Africa. So I'm very, very proud of that conservation project in the white rhino, Umphallosi and Shushlui game reserves in South Africa. Okay. And the first thing, Marlon Perkins himself personally picks me up at the airport. He's so excited. And as we're driving, he says, here's my list of things I want you to do in addition to this project. You're going to be this project on this big NIH project. You're going to be the pathologist, but I want you to also look for these things. The first one was all the bears and all the zoos all over the world are dying of liver cancer. Polar bears, grizzly bears, Kodiak bears, brown bears, black bears, panda bears, they're all dying of liver cancer. And all the geneticists and biologists are saying it's a genetic thing. There's nothing we can do about it. He said, when they live out in the wild, it doesn't manifest, the gene doesn't manifest itself. And I said, well, sir, with all due respect, that's not true. these aren't genetic diseases. This is a very simple disease. And I said, what are you feeding all these bears? He says, well, they get peanuts. People throw peanuts at them, and then we give them, each bear each day gets a couple of loaves of old bread from the thrift stores, and they get some whole fish. I said, oh, okay, I know what the problem is already. This is caused by an infestation in the old bread. Okay, the reason why they are giving the zoos this old bread, it has this mold growing on it. Well, yeah, we just cut that mold off. Well, that may be mold you see with your eyes on 2 slices of bread, but it's also in the rest of the bread. And this aspergillus mold, this bread mold, is not penicillin, and produces a byproduct called aflatoxin. Aflatoxin causes liver cirrhosis and liver cancer. So let's get them on dry dog food. Okay, and take them off all that stuff. Let's just give them fish and dry dog food and see what happens. And in 2 months' time, 2 to 6 months' time, in all the zoos in the world, all the liver cancer stopped, and there's never been since 1967 another bear die of liver cancer. Now I wonder how many people who are poor and living on the streets and taking this old bread out of thrift stores, I wonder how many of them get liver cancer versus somebody who's a middle-class person and buying fresh bread every day from the store. I'll bet it's 10, 15, 20, 50 times more in the poor people because they're buying that thrift bread and they'll just throw those slices away and think they're safe. So anyway, those are some of the things we do. And so how can I help you, gentlemen?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And that story that you told me just reminded me of when you talk about the pandas, right? They were feeding them, talk about feeding them just bamboo, and you, same thing, switched them to dry dog food. And
suddenly now we're having
now you're having birth control pandas, right?
Exactly. What do we do all the panda babies?
Now there's too many pandas. There's pandas everywhere now. That's really, really cool. So one of the questions that I was really interested in is obviously your histories in veterinary studies and all that. You've done a lot in zoos. So regarding pets, why is it that we're seeing a lot of different diseases coming back? I'm hearing of people that their dogs are getting cancer, their hips are giving out, or all that stuff. And I know you probably have a great response for that. So I've just, and I think I probably know what you're going to say, but hearing it from the sources.
Okay, we're very kind. And of course, thank you. Yeah, it's a very simple story. Dog food has all the known essential nutrients in it for dogs and cats and that sort of stuff. And that's why we gave the bears dog food. We took them off all the old bread and we put them on dog food. Everything went away. Well, the same thing is true for feeding dogs dog food. Now, people say, well, why would I spend 65 cents a can for dog food, or $1.10 for a can of dog food? I can just give them table scraps. And so they're giving their pets table scraps. And of course, nutritional minerals do not occur in a uniform blank around the crust of the earth. They occur chocolate and triple treat ice cream or whatever it is. It occurs like gold mines. There's no gold mines right next to each other. There's one here, one 10,000 miles away, silver mines, that kind of stuff. And so the same thing is true in humans. And that's why I wrote the book Immortality, because nutritional minerals do not occur in a uniform blank around the crust of the earth. There's some cultures that live to be 160 on the average. We live to be 75 on the average. There's cultures around the world that live to be 165. Some live to be 175. The oldest documented ones in our lifetimes have been the Hunza people up near the Giltar Glacier. It was actually a New York Times investigative reporter that was sent there because they're claiming this Dr. Lee Ching Yun was 261 years old. And they said, this bunch has got to be deceiving people. So they send this investigative reporter for the New York Times up to China. And he follows this guy for a year and does fingerprints and does things that he would have touched 50 and 100 years ago. And that's him. Okay, that was a kind of a clever way of chasing that down. And so the guy by the name of James Hilton wrote a report that became a front page news story in the New York Times about, 1925 or something like that. And then he wrote a book, which came out, a best-selling book called Lost Horizon. And one of the provinces in these areas where this Dr. Lee Ching Yun worked was Shangri-La. And so he put the Shangri-La in this book as a place where people live forever. Okay, it was a mythological place where people live forever, but it was actually a place. And then the story gets better because it became a movie, Lost Horizon. And people got to watch this movie and read the book and so forth. And of course, people took it just as a novel, but it was a true story. And so it's one of those things where, again, epigenetics, immortality, those two books alone, reading the information, taking the appropriate supplements, will, the 90 essential nutrients, 16 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 minutes, 3 fatty acids, will eliminate 900 different diseases. Okay, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. Do you think that dog food having wheat-based products leads to different things like that too? Because I know a lot of dog foods aren't gluten-free.
Well, that's right. You had to read the labels.
Mhm.
If it has wheat, brought around oats in it, I wouldn't give it to my dog. But you have to appreciate, now people live under the bridge. A lot of them will eat dog food. Okay, and if they choose the right ones, okay, that doesn't have any gluten in it, they will live longer than a rich person. Somebody like Herman Cain, who's a billionaire, the CEO of Godfather Pizza. He died of COVID, even with the best treatments in a private hospital. He died of COVID 30 days after diagnosis because they did everything wrong on him. They did everything wrong. He died in 30 days after diagnosis, Herman Cain. But if they'd have given him dog food, he'd have been better off, right, than what they did for him. But
So would you mind moving forward with the there's so much misinformation in the news about COVID and all this crazy stuff. Would you mind giving a little bit of your take on what maybe you can do to help yourself get through it if you catch it? Maybe things for, your immune system to, if you do come in contact,
Sure. Okay, sure. That's a very good, timely question. Let's look at the sort of natural history of the disease. When a 3-year-old gets COVID, their temperature will go up. I notice I said their temperature will go up because it might only go up a half a degree. You can't class that as a fever. Their temperature will go up from 98.6 to 99. Okay, you can't class it as a fever. They'll get mild common cold-like symptoms for 3 days. Over, no problem. They don't have the disease anymore. Now, if a 63-year-old or a 73-year-old or an 83-year-old gets COVID, they're going to get some serious complications, and they're going to have a high rate of death because they have all these pre-existing conditions. And some will have 3, and some will have 5, and some will have 8, and some will have 12, and some will have 20 pre-existing conditions. Older people that have diabetes and high blood pressure and arthritis and thyroid problems and ringing in the ears and Alzheimer's disease, and they've lost their vision, they have glaucoma, they have prostate problems, run kidney dialysis. And you talk to them and they say, well, I'm 75 years old, things break down as you get older. Oh no, that's not true. You've been eating gluten all your life. Do you have any skin problems? Oh God, I got psoriasis, something terrible. Man, I live on cortisone for my psoriasis. Okay. Well, that's because you're eating gluten, and all these things are gluten secondary things because gluten damages your intestine. All those villi in your intestine that increase your absorptive surface by 95% go away. And now your intestines are like inside of a garden hose, just smooth. So you've lost 98% of your absorptive surface. And even if you're supplementing, you're not going to get much result. And so that's why older people who are following the doctor's instructions saying eat plenty of whole grains, bam, you're dead. You don't want to be doing that. Okay. Don't eat whole grains. The only whole grains you want to eat are rice and millet and buckwheat. Okay. You do not want to fry rice. You can have brown rice. You can have wild rice, yellow rice, red rice, white rice, but you cannot have fried rice because you're heating up oils. That will kill you and give you cancer. Okay. But you want to live like an Asian. Now I'm 81 years old. I'll be 82 in 3 months. Okay. And people think I'm 50 years old by looking at me. I don't have any wrinkles. I don't have any gray hair. I do have a tooth knocked out. It was in a fight in a mall. I got the last package of t-shirts, and these 3 guys wanted this package of t-shirts. 2 of them grabbed me. The other one was trying to pull that package away from me. And he punched me, knocked my tooth out. Well, 2 of those 3, they lost all their teeth when I got through with them. Okay. Okay. And so that's not because of osteoporosis in my skull or anything. That was in a fight. I lost that tooth. I have all my other teeth. Okay. And I don't have any infirmities. I'm 82 years old. I don't have any diabetes. I don't have any high blood pressure. I don't have any psoriasis. I don't have any thyroid problems. I don't have any glaucoma. And I don't have anything of that nature. I don't have any back problems. I don't have any atrial fibrillation. I don't have any tachycardia. I don't have any celiac disease. I don't have any ulcerative colitis. Okay, I don't have any of that stuff because I take my 90 essential nutrients. I've been doing it for 72 years. I've been taking my 90 essential nutrients twice a day for 72 years. And as a result, I don't have any of those issues, which are all nutritional deficiencies. Okay. And so I don't know if that answers the question.
So the best offense is a good defense then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just
Don't wait until you get sick and try to
don't wait
treat
until
each
you get sick,
disease.
but
You want prevention is the best way to go.
I think that's, I mean, everyone that follows you, especially us, we know that that's generally the answer, right? But sometimes we can't get back from. or we feel like we can't get back
Well,
from
unfortunately, people
people
listen to their
gone.
doctors. Yeah,
Mhm.
unfortunately, people listen to their doctors. Well, my doctor said I can get everything I need from eating well. I tell them, I said, look, I have two businesses. One is my health business with my products, but I also own a coffin company. May I sell you? I'll give you a good deal on a coffin. You're going to need one very soon if you're listening to your doctor, because he said you can eat well and get everything you need. That doctor should go to jail for being a serial killer, figuratively and literally, okay? Because he's telling you these whole grains, which is cereal. He is a serial killer, spelled CER, not SER.
Yeah, I actually just listened to that lecture, so I'm all over it. So
Okay.
I do have some other questions, kind of things that because I've been with Longevity for almost 3 years now. So there's some questions that I've come across that I
Sure.
just kind of wanted to ask you. So one of my big ones is my grandmother passed away from ALS, and I was wondering, is that similar at all to Alzheimer's, or what could have been done preventative wise, or once we had a diagnosis,
Sure.
maybe other people, it could help other people.
Okay, well, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, is related to Lou Gehrig's disease, right? It's also related to MS. It's related to Alzheimer's disease. All these brain diseases are the same disease. It's just what part of the brain is more severely afflicted. Okay, it's not genetic. None of those diseases are genetic. Even if everybody in your family's had it, you're all eating the same way and doing all the same bad things. Okay, so you're just repeating bad history. That's why you have the same disease. It's not a genetic thing. And so what I tell people who have these types of disease, and I'll tell you a story first. You may have heard this story on one of my CDs. It's about Ray McGregor, okay, from Charlotte, North Carolina. And this guy's got to be 20 years ago. His sister calls me, okay? She says, Dr. Wallach, my brother Ray McGregor, he was diagnosed 11 years before I'm calling you now. So he was diagnosed 11 years ago with Alzheimer's disease. And the doctors treated him for 3 years with pharmaceuticals for Alzheimer's disease. It may have slowed down the rate maybe, but by the time he was in the middle of his third year, he goes into a coma. They put him in their nursing home and feed him with a G tube twice a day. They're giving him inshore, these canned meals made out of oil, worst possible thing you can do. And they're giving him 2 of these cans a day, and they're giving him IVs once a day with just saline, so he's hydrated, plus the Ensure. And now his brain waves are about 0. There's nothing there anymore after after 8 years. He's been in a coma for 8 years. And so his brain waves are about 0, and they're ready to pull the plug on him because they need the space for somebody who's just going into a coma. And they want to use the space for them because there's no cure for Alzheimer's disease on the horizon. They said, well, there's nothing more we can do for him. So we're just going to pull the plug and send you home, and you can feed him through his G tube at home and all that kind of stuff, but there's nothing more we can do for him. Is there anything we can do? I said, well, yeah. Well, what you do is you're going to have to do this because they're not going to do this. I say, but ask them to give you 90 days. If you have to pay extra, just pay extra, but make them give you 90 days. You can't just say we're going to pull the plug tomorrow after being there for 8 years. So have them give you 90 days. And then what I want you to do is take away the Ensure. But I want you to give him one of our shakes. It comes in 2 or 3 flavors, strawberry and chocolate and vanilla. And give him one of our shakes with each meal. But I want you to make those shakes with heavy cream. Not water, as the instructions say. I want you to make it with heavy cream. I also want you to blend up, beat up 3 eggs, soft poached eggs, soft poached or partially cooked with soft yolks. I want you to give them 3 of those eggs with each meal in those shakes. Okay. I also want him to get our, let's see here, our Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. I want him to have a full dose of the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack in each of those 3 meals. I want him to have our de-stress capsules, 3 of those in each of those 3 meals. I want him to have one of our Ultimate Niacin Plus in each of those 3 meals. I want him to have the Ultimate Cardio, okay, the Ultimate Cardio capsules, okay. I want him to have 3 of those in this. Make sure you open them up and put the powder in, okay. 3 of those in each of those meals, in case it's vascular dementia, okay. And I'm covering 10 different dementias here, okay. That's why we're doing this. Don't forget the eggs. And because he might have MS, I want you to also throw in a couple of antioxidants. We do have the pollen burst or the SOD, peroxide dismutase. He can have 3 of those with each meal. And I also want him to have the Cell Shield RTQ, 3 of those with each meal. We didn't have BTG 2.0 back then, I don't think. So she says, I'll do it. So call me every 2 weeks, let me know how it's going. She calls me in 3 days and she's wailing and screaming and crying and she's yelling her brother's name, Ray McGregor, Ray McGregor. I said, calm down, how's your brother? I'm thinking, oh my God, he's dead or something. Something horrible happened here. And she's, well, he got up this morning. I said, it's only been 3 days. She said, yeah, he got up this morning. He thought he was only asleep one night. He didn't realize he was in a coma for 8 years. This is a gospel true story. She said he got up this morning, shaved, put on his suit, and he went back to work at the bank. He was an officer 8 years earlier as a bank vice president in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so nobody there now was there 8 years ago, and he thought he was just some clever crook coming in and saying he's a bank officer so he could rob the bank. They called the cops and everything. All this is going on. He's saying, well, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? They'll know me, but they're all gone. They're retired and all that kind of stuff. And so Ray McGregor is one of my favorite stories when it comes to ALS and Lou Gehrig's disease and MS and those and Alzheimer's disease and those types of disease, all the same disease.
That's an incredible story. I had heard you share that at one point, but just hearing it, everything he got and how quick it was is.
Oh yeah, just three days.
Just 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife is she's a nurse, but she has to sometimes give these kids the Ensure and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, tell me what's in that stuff. And it's so bad. It's just, sugar and wheat and.
That's what we have our Rebound, our sports drink for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you want to, what I have for breakfast every morning, okay, what I have for breakfast is I have our smoked salmon from Alaska. Okay. I have rice. I have brown rice or wild rice with our salt from our Savor division. Okay. Mm-hmm. Our pink Himalayan salt. We'll also have 3 soft-boiled eggs with soft yolks. And I'll have 2 of these little 4-ounce things of yogurt that are gluten-free and sugar-free yogurts. I think it's Noosa as the brand name. And then I will have my 90 essential nutrients. I take 90 pills, tablets, and capsules. I make up about 25 of those bottles every month. And I also have, I call my Juju. My Juju is let's see here. Oh, it's the OsteoFX. Okay. It's the Osteo stick, the Cardio FX stick, and also the BTT 2.0 sticks. I have those 3 things twice a day, along with all my 90 pills and capsules and tablets twice a day. And but that's my breakfast.
That's a lot better than what a lot of patients are getting, and that's why they don't get better, right? Can you talk about I've heard you talk on this before, but not in a big piece. Could you talk about how diet affects your absorption of medication, not just nutrients? Like people that are on seizure medication but continue to have seizures or.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Well, here's why. A good example is diabetes. People will have type 2 diabetes, and they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will give them metformin, which is a diabetic medication. And they take it for 3 days. Their blood sugar doesn't come down. They say, okay, you got type 1 diabetes. I'm 65 years old. You're just diagnosing me now at 65 with type 1 diabetes. You got type 1 diabetes. That's why you're not absorbing it. So they give them an injection right there in the office of insulin. Their blood sugar goes right down and say, see, we can get your blood sugar down, but you have to take injections because the pills aren't going to work for you. And I say, okay, well, get off of gluten and then you take the pills. And the reason the pills didn't work for you is not because you're a type 1 diabetic, because you've been eating gluten for 60 years and all those villi are gone. You can't absorb the metformin. And that's why. And the doctors know this. They're not that stupid, but they have 3 sons in college who didn't get sports. What do you call them?
Scholarships.
What?
Scholarships.
Yeah, scholarships. Thank you. They didn't get scholarships. And so they have to pay their way through college. And so you're paying their son's way through college by taking insulin and going to the office visit and paying $100, every 3 months, every quarter, for $100 for an office visit. And then you have to pay $200 for the laboratory. And then you can yourself, you didn't have to go to the doctor in the first place. If you thought you had diabetes, just go to the pharmacy without a prescription, get a bottle of 3 of these test strips, they're $1.50 a piece, stick yourself in the finger, run it yourself. Oh, I got type 2 diabetes. Okay. And then you use our healthy blood sugar pack, 1 per 100 pounds of body weight, and then take your blood sugar again 3 days later. Oh, my diabetes is gone. Well, there you go.
You answered like multiple questions with that one, because I've seen a lot on social media of these late diagnosis type 1 diabetics, and I've always been confused about how that happens, but it's because they're not. Does that have to do with insulin sensitivity at all? Is that part of it? Is that why it happens later on? No.
Nope. It's because they were eating gluten. They had oatmeal for breakfast. They had spaghetti for lunch. They had spaghetti for dinner. They had waffles for breakfast. They had pancakes for breakfast. They had mustacholi every Wednesday with their friends at Spaghetti House, whatever it is. And then, of course, for dessert, they're having pretzels and ice cream cones, all that stuff. Everything you could think of was gluten in it. That's what they're eating. And beer, is made from wheat. And of course, Scotch and bourbon and rye whiskey is made from rye. Okay. And so, no, it was just the fact they couldn't absorb the metformin is why, and the doctors aren't dumb. They know that. They should go to jail for being a serial, CER killer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really didn't know. So I'm glad you were able to answer that. So I have one more question, and then I want Devin. I think Devin may have some things he wants to ask about. So
sure.
I've heard you reference this before, but I have a cousin that's narcoleptic, and I'm wondering, and I've heard you refer to it as a blood sugar issue. So I was interested to know what people going through narcolepsy could possibly maybe do.
Well, narcolepsy goes back thousands of years. I mean, it's written about in the Bible. It's written about in, the Old Testament. It's written about in, like a lot of the Caesars and, from Italy. And so they'd have narcolepsy where you during the day, suddenly now you just sort of space out and go away. They call it that. I mean, I just went away, or they'll eat a big dinner and they'll sit on the couch and go to sleep an hour after they eat dinner. It's also called reactive hypoglycemia. It's also called your villi are going away, right? You're not absorbing enough nutrients. Your pancreas doesn't have enough nutrition to make enough insulin. And so what happens is you're making insulin, but you're not responding to it because your cells don't have enough nutrition to respond to the insulin. So you're getting reactive hypoglycemia and going to sleep. And you cross the center line and hit somebody because you just ate an hour ago and it was a big spaghetti dinner with all the carbohydrates. And so you went to sleep, crossed the center line and killed people. But so narcolepsy is a reactive hypoglycemia is what it is. And it's reactive because when you eat a big carbohydrate thing, you're going to release a lot of insulin and knocks your blood sugar down. And you get down to 30, you're going to go to sleep. Okay. And so that's what happens. And so when that happens, we just get them off all the gluten, no wheat, brown, rye, oats. The villi grow back and get them on the 90 essential nutrients, absolutely no gluten, and their narcolepsy, aka reactive hypoglycemia, goes away in anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks and game over. But they have to stay free of gluten forever and live like an Asian, and rice and sweet potatoes, no fried rice. Take the 90.
That's super helpful. I appreciate that. I want Devin to jump in if he has anything to talk to you about, but I just want to say thank you for getting on here.
I appreciate everything so far. It's been phenomenal. Just a couple of quick questions. So I know you mentioned right now, obviously gluten just is terrible for the villi. And I know you mentioned that the villi eventually will grow back after eliminating gluten from your diet completely.
And taking the 90.
And taking the 90. Okay, so how long normally does it take for the villi to kind of come back to up to par?
Well, here's the beautiful part of the story.
Well,
let's say you're 73 years old and you got diabetes, you got high blood pressure, and you got psoriasis, and you got you're on dialysis, you have all this stuff going on, you're constipated, and you have blood in your stool because you have ulcerative colitis and so on, have all this stuff going on, and you get on a gluten-free diet and you take the 90 and the secret sauces for those individual diseases. In 2 weeks' time, you're going to see benefit. Okay. And in 4 to 6 weeks' time, I take people. Now, here's my best example. It was a Canadian. This guy hadn't urinated in 10 years. He had not urinated in 10 years. He was on dialysis for 25 years. He was on dialysis for the last 10 years since he hadn't urinated 6 days a week. He didn't want to get a kidney transplant. He was afraid of surgery. He didn't want to get a kidney transplant. So he decided to just stay on the dialysis. And the last 10 years, he was on dialysis 6 days a week because he couldn't urinate. So we got him off of all the gluten. Okay. We got him off all gluten. We got him on 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, the big hammer in the toolbox. I gave him the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets, 3 of those 3 times a day to get the blood flowing through the blocked arteries and the kidneys. And in 2 weeks' time, he's urinating again. So they dropped the dialysis from 6 days a week to 3 days a week. And then in 4 weeks more time, he was totally off the dialysis and he's perfectly normal just after 6 weeks. After 25 years of being on dialysis and 10 years of being on dialysis for 6 weeks.
That's incredible as well. Wow. Okay. So another question I have, obviously, with regards to the 12 bad foods, we know that oil, ingesting it, cooking with it is just absolutely not. But a question I have is, what are your thoughts on ghee? Is ghee appropriate or not? Would that be a part of the oil category?
I would have to look at that closely, but I would say it's part of the oil category. Okay. It's kind of fermented oils kind of things. And I would pass that up. I would have to look at the cultures and see who eats ghee 2 or 3 times a week or every day before I would answer that question. But we do have, of course, the EFAs and the EFA pluses in our thing. Well, they're oil. Well, yeah, but the oils are extracted, okay, from the seeds, which are sunflower seeds and that kind of stuff, right? It's not wheat, okay, and also from fish livers, okay, in a nitrogen atmosphere in the factory. The soft gel capsules are flushed with these nitrogen gases before we put the oil in there, and then when we put the capsules in the bottles, they're flushed with nitrogen before they're sealed. Everything is nitrogen, 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 no oxidation. So we protect against that. We're the only ones to protect against that. We're the only ones. Okay. The EFAs are essential nutrients. EFAs and EFA pluses. You have to have them. But the only 2, I'll tell you another quick story here. Gosh, this has got to be 25, 30 years ago. Zoo calls me and said, okay, we got, I'm trying to remember where the zoo was. Maybe Iowa or something like that. Weird place, Iowa. They had 2 sheep die, okay, from Iowa. We've only had them a couple of months. We got them from the Atlas Mountains of North Africa. It was a deal. So we got these 2 wild sheep. They're a beautiful display, and they both died 3 days apart. I did an autopsy on them. They all had 99% blockage of their coronary arteries with plaque. I said, what are you feeding them? Well, we give them grass clippings from the zoo. We give them hay, and we give them corn, and we give them a few oats. I said, okay, well, that shouldn't cause plaque in the arteries. I All right, let me check on it. But I do want to know. Tell me about the grain you were giving them. I want to know whether you buy it every day from a from a wholesaler. So they called me back a couple of days later and said, "Remember those grains we told you about? Well, those grains had been in the zoo for 2 years in an iron 55-gallon drum and a metal barn, and the temperature in that barn would get to be 120 degrees for 3 months every summer, every day." And I said, "Okay, well, what happened here was." That heat oxidized those oils in those wheat, barley, rye, and oats you were giving those sheep and turned into trans fats in those grains because of the heat in that iron drum in the metal barns. And so you're feeding them trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides, which is what causes plaque in the arteries, not cholesterol. Cholesterol doesn't cause plaque in the arteries. But up until that moment, I thought it did. And so I was so excited. So I got it all written up like I had done, in 1961. I wrote my first scientific article, and my 50 sheep died. And I submitted it to the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA. I mean, they know me. I mean, here's one we can talk about together, guys. And 2 months later, they just send me a written notice. They didn't even call me. They sent me a written notice, say, "Sorry, we're going to decline this because this is a human disease. There's no way that animals are going to get that, especially not eating cholesterol. So you may be tricking us or something. No, no, no."
Wow. I do have a, you might have
let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. And so then I sent it to veterinary journals. They said, "Well, we can't publish it because it was a human disease." And we called them and they said, "You're trying to trick people saying that they, got this cardiac disease and everything. It's not true. It can't be. There's genetic disease in people, cholesterol, blah, blah, blah." I got it published, but it was in a Danish cardiology journal in Danish. It was published in Danish. So if you want to read that article, you have to read it in Danish, or you can get all the details in the book Epigenetics. Okay. So I apologize. What's the follow-up?
No, it's okay. So I was actually, now that that's what clogs arteries. Is there a way to unclog arteries?
Of course.
What can we do about that? Okay.
Well, I do this all the time. I take people again, like the kidney thing. Well, so why did this guy who hadn't urinated in 10 years, why did he respond? Okay, because I did not treat him for kidney failure. I treated him for plugged arteries.
Yeah.
Because it's the arteries that carry the dirty blood into the kidneys. And when the arteries get plugged, the kidneys will release a hormone called renin to drive the blood pressure up, trying to get more blood into the kidneys. But nobody ever treats the kidneys. They all try to treat symptomatically this stuff going on in the kidney, but they treat the kidneys. Okay. Well, I knew it wasn't a kidney issue because every time when I was a student, they bring me these big trays full of kidneys they had taken out of people who were on dialysis or, kidney transplants. There's nothing wrong with the kidneys. There's nothing wrong with these kidneys. The glomeruli are fine. All the filtering devices are fine in the kidneys. There's nothing wrong with the kidneys. Their arteries are plugged, but there's nothing wrong with the kidneys. Why are you giving them dialysis? Okay, well, then I figured, here's the problem. They're not getting the dirty blood in there. So I started treating at that time. I mean, we're talking 25, 30 years ago. I started treating for the artery thing, and in weeks, they're off of dialysis because it was the artery issue, not the kidney issue.
And this is similar to, arteries are all the same, right? That's what I've heard you say. So
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
To a stroke, to glaucoma, it's the same thing. It's just all in this
Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, right.
Okay, this is great.
remember Ray McGregor?
That's right.
Yeah, the odds are Ray McGregor had vascular dementia, because in 3 days' time he was already. I'm sure he wasn't perfectly cured, but all his Alzheimer's went away because he was getting blood flowing into the kidneys now, but also was flowing into the brain.
It's just crazy how everything's connected. But like you said, medical doctors just treat the symptom. It's okay,
now you have to appreciate, I'll give you one more piece right now. I don't know if you already heard this one. Just about 2 weeks ago, Lancet, the big British medical journal, came out with an editorial. All their medical doctor editors came out with an editorial in Lancet, one of the most famous medical journals in the world, right? Lancet. Lancet is the word the British use for scalpel. And they wrote an editorial, and the editorial said, all medical schools have failed the world. Now, this is the Lancet 2 weeks ago, said all medical schools, you can look it up, all medical schools in the world have failed the world. Because all they're doing, I'm going to use their exact words. This is an exact quote. All medical schools have taught their medical students to be pill pushers, quote unquote, treating only symptoms. None of them teach them how to identify the disease and eliminate the disease. Is that cool?
That's an incredible thing for them.
I've been saying that for 50 years. So what I suspect happened was a bunch of people got together and they said, okay, we'll get this Wallach. We'll take all his most egregious stuff, you know, like this Canadian guy hadn't peed in 10 years, right? We'll take all this to Lancet and they'll investigate it and they'll show that he's a quack. And they investigated and they said, okay, guys, here's what we found. It's because you're just treating symptoms that nobody's getting better. Okay, they come to the hospital. They don't die of a heart attack. They die of your treatment.
They die of malnutrition or whatever. It's like when you did Dead Doctors Don't Lie and they redid your study to prove you wrong and then just prove that they were actually worse off than they.
Yeah, they were worse off than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry to cut you off, Devin. I don't know if you have anything else, but yeah, I couldn't help but ask that question about cholesterol.
No worries. Something I think is just fascinating. I'd love for you to share a little bit about it is how many people a year in America die from medical negligence. If we could share a little bit of some insights on that. Or...
Well, again, that was from this big study that Johns Hopkins came out with. They came out with it about 4 to 6 weeks ago. It was a 7-year study. They started the study in 2013. They looked at the top 8 causes of death in American hospitals. They worked on it since 2013, so 20 years and some months. And they said, number 1 killer of Americans in hospitals is heart disease. Well, did they get a heart attack and go into the hospital and die of that heart attack in the hospital? No. They died of infection secondary to their heart transplants or their surgeries or whatever, or maybe the nurse, gave them a dirty needle or something like that, and they got an infection. They died of an infection in the hospital. Everybody who died in the hospital who was there for heart disease didn't die from heart disease, but they classed that as their number 1 killer. Number 2, number two is actually cancer. Okay, the number 2 thing, it was lung cancer, liver cancer, but it was cancer was the number 2 killer. Well, number 3, they nailed it good. They got 100%. I give them 100% for number 3. Number 3 was medical errors. They said medical errors are the 3rd leading cause of death in American hospitals. Now, they give a number. Now, are you holding on to your seats? They said each year in American hospitals, this is just American hospitals only. Each year in American hospitals only, medical doctors kill is the word they used. This is Johns Hopkins. This just was published 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. You can look it up. Big study, 7 years and some months. Each year, medical doctors kill from medical errors in hospitals, 251,000 to 440,000 killed each year in hospitals from medical errors in America alone. Now, you fellows tell me how many businesses stay in business if they kill 251,000 to 440,000 of their customers in their workplace. I mean, if 3 people die in a workplace, they shut that puppy down. The government falls on them like everything else. Well, here's one trade in their workplace. Each year, they kill 251,000 to 440,000 of their customers in their workplace. It's a self-investigation, and they're stupid enough to publish it where I'm going to see it.
And people just keep going back?
And people keep going back. Because insurance pays. I just love my doctor. He belongs to my church. Okay, so here we go. What I want you to do is box up all your prescription medication, put a ribbon on it, and give it with love to your doctor and see if he takes it. Watch him take it. He's not going to take it.
No chance.